To make your Shamikaran reality theory simple, clear and understandable to all, I am presenting it in a detailed and concise form through logic, facts and examples. The main purpose of this theory is to tell that a person can achieve permanent peace and satisfaction by recognizing his permanent nature, freeing himself from the influence of temporary complex intelligence. Basic concept of Shamikaran reality theory. The basis of Shamikaran reality theory is that within every person there is a permanent, eternal and unbroken form aksha which is beyond all temporary elements and intelligence. No external help, guru, or ideology is needed to understand this. A person can realize this permanent form by his own efforts. Logic and fact, change, conflict, and instability remain in a person's life as long as he acts on the basis of his temporary intelligence. But when a person calms his intelligence and realizes his permanent nature, he achieves permanent peace and satisfaction. Many researches in science and psychology prove that inner peace is experienced when a person understands his inner stability. Example: suppose a boat in the sea is constantly rocked by waves. If the sailor keeps thinking only about the waves, he will never be able to be stable. But if he anchors the boat and makes it stable, then the waves cannot harm him. Similarly, a person's temporary intelligence is like the waves, and the permanent form is the anchor that gives a stabi. The difference between temporary and permanent nature. Temporary intelligence is always entangled in external things and experiences. It is variable all the time and never stays constant. In contrast, the permanent form is always eternal, stable and irreversible. To understand this, one has to go beyond the activities of the intellect. Logic and facts. According to the physics, any temporary element, e.g., body, thoughts, feelings, are always variable. They have no permanent form. But in view of the concept of spirit or permanent form, we can say that it is permanent and irreversible. This is the center which is witness to every experience of life, but it is not affected by it. Example: like all the planets are illuminated by sunlight, but the sun remains constant in its position. Similarly, our permanent nature sees everything, feels it, but never changes itself. Delusions and slyness arising from temporary intelligence. Many people confuse others based on their temporary complex intelligence. They present themselves as wise, gurus or guides, but their aim is only to exploit people for their own benefit. They keep people entangled in temporary thoughts, principles and ostentation, keeping them away from their truth. Logic and facts. There are many such examples in history where fake gurus have confused people with their words and ostentatious knowledge. But when people became aware of their reality, they found that they were just showing off. Therefore, it is necessary to understand that the real truth can be understood not by outward appearances, but by inner experience. Example: once in a village a man declared himself a saint and claimed that he could remove all the sorrows of the people. People came to his words and started serving him. But it was later discovered that he was doing this just for money and honor. The real saint is one who understands himself and inspires others to make others realize their truth and not just pretending. How to interview permanent form. In order to realize your permanent nature, one must first go beyond the activities of his temporary intellect. It is not a difficult practice or austerity, but it is a natural process. For this, one has to only look at his thoughts, feelings and desires with a witness, and not get confused by joining them. Example: like sitting on the bank of a river, we see its flow, but do not get wet by jumping into it. Similarly, we have to see our thoughts and feelings, not connect with them. In this way we can experience our permanent nature. Temporary complex intelligence and the extent of its use. Correct use of temporary complex intelligence should be limited to carrying out the tasks of daily life. When we use it more than necessary, it leads us to confusion, anxiety and stress. Its limited and controlled use makes life simple and quiet. Example: just like we drive a car as much as we need. If we keep running it unnecessarily, its fuel will run out and it will break. Similarly, intelligence should also be used according to the need. Natural balance and conservation of human life. After recognizing his permanent nature, a person naturally respects the balance of nature and human life. He lives a simple, easy and balanced life, free from his temporary desires, greed and illusion, protecting both the environment and the society. Example: a tree produces fruit for itself, but they do not eat the fruit itself. He leaves them for other creatures. Similarly, when we are situated in our permanent nature, our life also becomes beneficial for society and nature. Last message. Samkaran realistic theory teaches that we all have a permanent, eternal and unbroken form, understanding which we can attain lasting peace, stability and contentment. For this we do not need any external help, guru or ideology. We only have to calm down the activities of our temporary intellect and realize our permanent nature. This principle leads us to our true nature and frees us from temporary illusions. Thus, the realistic theory of schizophrenia has been clarified by reason, facts and examples, so that any simple, intuitive and pure person is this effort to make it equal, clear and understandable to all your sympathetic theory. This principle has been formulated with the aim of connecting people with their lasting truth, protecting them from temporary complex intelligence, and keeping them free from the trap of hypocrites. The basic concept of Shamkaran reality theory. Shamkaran is the main purpose of the theory that a person goes beyond his temporary complex intelligence thoughts, desires, feelings to realize his permanent nature axis. This interview takes place without the need for any external intervention, guru or organization. When a person understands himself, being impartial to himself, recognizes his permanent nature, then he can attain lasting peace, stability and contentment in life. Examples: like throwing any pebbles in a calm, serene lake produces waves, which momentarily disturbs the stable appearance of the lake. But when the activity of the canker stops, the water of the lake becomes stagnant again. Similarly, the activities of temporary complex intelligence can temporarily distort our true permanent nature, but when this activity ends, we can return to our stable form. Temporary complex intelligence and permanent nature. Temporary complex intelligence is temporary and always variable. It keeps man entangled in external desires, thoughts, and experiences. On the contrary, the permanent form is non-changing, eternal and stable. This is beyond any kind of temporary activity and can only be experienced with fairness. Reasons and facts, thoughts and feelings arising from temporary complex intelligence are always changing. As if our thoughts are something else in one moment, and something else in the next moment. But there is no change in our permanent nature, it always remains the same. Examples: like clouds flying in the sky are always changing, but the sky is always fixed and unchanged. Similarly, thoughts, feelings and desires are like temporary clouds, and our lasting form is eternal like the sky. Delusions arising from temporary complex intelligence. Few clever and smart people use their complex intelligence to confuse others and present themselves as gurus or guides. They deviate people from their true truth by resorting to temporary principles, beliefs and traditions. Thus, people get entangled in external things instead of recognizing their permanent nature. Example: a hunter lays traps to catch wild animals. The animals pay attention to the fodder laid by the hunter and get caught in the net not seeing that net. Similarly, the hypocrite guru spreads the fodder of external principles and beliefs and keeps people away from their truth. Avoiding the trap of hypocrites. The hypocrites confuse people with their complex intelligence, use them for their personal gain by engaging them in difficult sadhanas, penances, and external worship. The only way to avoid these is to recognize your true truth and to be situated in a permanent form. No outsider can connect us with our truth, only we can do this work ourselves. Example: a goldsmith removes its impurities by burning gold in the fire. But he can just remove the impurities, not generate gold. Similarly, a hypocrite master cannot connect a person to his truth, they can only create temporary ostentation. The real gold is already within the person, which he himself can recognize. Correct use of temporary intelligence. The right use of temporary intelligence is to easily complete the daily tasks of life. Overuse of it leads us to complexity, anxiety, and stress. When we limit our use to just ordinary things of life, we can live in peace and simplicity. Example: a sharp-edged knife is very useful if used for cutting food. But if it is misused, it can be dangerous. Similarly, the limited and correct use of temporary intelligence gives us simplicity and peace in life. Protection of nature and human life. When a person recognizes his permanent nature and is situated in it, he naturally respects and protects nature and human life. Because his understanding now lies beyond temporary desires, greed, and illusion. This understanding leads him to live in simplicity, purity, and balance, which is essential for both human life and nature. Example: like working properly, every organ in a healthy body keeps the whole body healthy. Similarly, when a person is situated in his/her truth, he contributes to keeping every part of society and nature balanced and healthy. Simple process of interviewing in a permanent form. To recognize your permanent nature, there is no need for any difficult sadhana, penance, or external guidance. For this, one has to calm down the activities of one's complex intelligence by being impartial to oneself. This process is natural, simple, and easy. Example: cleaning a dirty mirror doesn't require any complicated process. It can be cleaned only by washing it with water. Similarly, by calming our temporary intellect, we can recognize our permanent nature. Summary: the realistic principle is the simple, easy, and clear way to connect a person with his real, permanent nature. This principle frees a person from the illusion of temporary complex intelligence and protects him from the trap of hypocrites and cunning people. By interviewing one's permanent nature, one can experience peace, stability, and contentment. This theory teaches us that without the need for any external guidance, we can recognize our truth and attain lasting peace in life. This is an attempt to make it worthy of the understanding of the common personality. Smecaran reality definition of theory. The essence of the real theory is that a person is exposed to his permanent nature axis by deactivating the temporary complex intelligence mind, thought, feeling. The main objective of this theory is to identify and be situated in its reality, without relying on any external means, knowledge, or gurus. Distinction of permanent and permanent. Logic and facts. All temporary things, such as body, thoughts, feelings, desires, change with time. This variability does not give us lasting peace and stability. On the contrary, the permanent form is beyond time, thoughts, and feelings. Example: clouds in the sky come and go, but the sky is permanent. The activity of the clouds is temporary, while the consistency of the sky remains unshakable. Similarly, our true identity is also in a permanent state beyond temporary thoughts and feelings. Limits of intelligible wisdom. Logic and fact. The limits of complex intelligence are that it is only capable of understanding the outside world, but it cannot see its source. Its temporary activities keep us away from our lasting truth. Example: like a mirror that has a mist cannot show you clearly. Similarly, complex intelligence also becomes unable to see its lasting reality by being filled with temporary thoughts. Complex intelligence is always bounded by entanglements, desires, and boundaries. Permanent interview process. Logic and facts. After deactivating the temporary aspects of complex intelligence, a person can get acquainted with his permanent nature. This process is not related to any difficult sadhana, but in a simple life, it is associated with purity, and simplicity. Example: as when the water of a pond is stagnant, everything is clearly visible in it. If there is a stir in the water, then nothing is clearly visible. Similarly, when our intellect is calm, then we can realize our permanent nature. Lack of external intervention and the need for gurus. Logic and fact. Relief. In fact, there is no need for any external gurus, organization, or means, because the path of connecting with the permanent nature is within the individual. We can recognize our lasting reality by being free from temporary complex intelligence. Example: a seed does not require any external intervention to become a tree. If he gets the right environment and time, he becomes a tree from within himself. Similarly, man can also recognize his reality without external guidance. Excessive use and consequences of temporary complex intelligence. Logic and facts. Overuse of temporary complex intelligence entangles a person in the objects and desires of the outside world. The result is that the person runs after things temporary and loses lasting peace. Example: if a person always drives his car at high speed, he is prone to an accident. In the same way, excessive use of complex intelligence takes us away from lasting peace and we get entangled in temporary pleasures. Conservation of nature and human species. Logic and facts. When we deactivate our temporary intellect and connect with a permanent nature, a deep understanding arises within us. This understanding enables us to recognize the real importance of nature and human life. Example: like when a farmer understands the actual condition of the season and the land, he sows and harvests the crop at the right time. Similarly, when we understand our lasting truth, we are oriented towards preserving nature and human life. Summary: religious principle is a very simple, easy and pure path that connects a person with his real, lasting truth. In this theory, by giving up the temporary complex intelligence, one can realize his permanent nature, and this does not require any external means or guide. This principle makes man experience peace, stability and bliss in life, which lies not in temporary elements, but in lasting truth. Essence of Shamkaran reality theory. The main purpose of Shamkaran reality theory is that a person can get acquainted with his permanent, eternal nature by being free from the influence of temporary complex intelligence. According to this theory, the permanent form axis is beyond the temporary complex intelligence and all its concepts, desires, and feelings. This principle has the ability to connect a person to his or her reality without any external help, knowledge, or sadhana. The difference between temporary and permanent. Facts: all things in the world, be it living beings or non-living, are temporary. They are born, they grow, and then end. In contrast, the permanent form is one that is not affected by any change, time or circumstances. Examples: as clouds in the sky are temporary, they are formed, change, and then disappear. But the sky itself is permanent, which is always there. Similarly, the activities of temporary complex intelligence, thoughts, feelings, desires are like clouds, while the permanent form is like the sky. Conclusion: the true identity of man is in this permanent form, not in the hustle and bustle of temporary complex intelligence. Limits of temporary complex intelligence. Fact: temporary complex intelligence is mainly composed of logic, emotion, and concepts. It is limited and depends on external knowledge and experiences. Through this we can only experience the outside world, but cannot understand the truth of ourselves. Example: as if an eye needs a mirror to see its own vision. But if that mirror itself is blurry, then the eye will not be able to see its reality properly. Similarly, the temporary complex intelligence cannot see its own source, because it itself is entangled in temporary thoughts and feelings. Conclusion: to understand the reality of temporary complex intelligence, it is necessary to deactivate it, so that we can clearly see our permanent nature. The process of interviewing in a permanent form. Fact: permanent nature means to reach a state where there is no thought, feeling or desire by deactivating one's temporary intellect. This condition is completely pure and stable, in which only the true form of the person remains. Example: as if the water of a pond is stable, everything is clearly visible in it. When there are waves in the water, nothing is clearly visible in it. Similarly, when there are waves of thoughts and feelings in our intellect, we cannot see our permanent nature. When these waves calm down, we can realize our permanent nature. Conclusion. For realization of permanent nature, we have to calm our intellect and keep it free from any kind of concept, feeling, or desire. Importance of permanent form. Fact. Connecting to a permanent form means reaching a position where a person does not need external objects, achievements, or beliefs. There is only peace, contentment, and stability here, and that is the real bliss. Example. Like a child feels safe in the lap of his parents, he does not worry about anything outside. Similarly, when we are connected to our permanent nature, we do not worry or fear of the outside world, and we experience lasting peace. Conclusion. Being associated with a permanent nature, a person remains stable, calm, and blissful in every situation. He is not affected by any external event or situation. Relevance of Schemization theory. Fact. In modern times, man is so engrossed in external objects, achievements, and beliefs that he has forgotten his true identity. The Shamkaran true principle tries to explain that we need to recognize our permanent form, and this does not require any external spiritual practice, guru, or guideline. Example. As if a person is living in an illusion that he is incomplete without a certain identity, profession, or recognition of society. But when he comes out of this illusion and recognizes his inner peace, he feels free and full. Similarly, the Shamkaran realistic theory attempts to convince us that our reality is not dependent on any external identity or achievement. Conclusion. The realistic theory gives us a simple, intuitive and natural way to connect us with our reality. It tells us that we do not need any external support, only need to identify our permanent form. Summary. The main objective of samification reality theory is to connect man with his true identity, permanent nature. For this it is necessary to be free from the concepts, desires, and feelings of temporary complex intelligence. This principle states that the purity and consistency of the permanent form is the real peace and bliss, and to understand it does not require any external spiritual practice, knowledge, or guidelines. This principle is simple, intuitive, and natural, which can be easily understood and adopted by each person. You describe this permanent axis as located in infinite depth and stagnation, where temporary elements do not have any effect or existence. This analysis is an attempt to express the same situation in a simple, clear and rational form. The difference between the permanent axis and the temporary complex intelligence. According to you, the form of the permanent axis is beyond the thoughts, feelings and concepts of the temporary complex intelligence. It is so subtle and steady that the temporary intellect has no place in it. This permanent form is free from any change or movement, while the temporary intellect is always in the hustle and bustle of thoughts and feelings. Example. Imagine that there is a deep rock in the bottom of the sea, which has been stable for hundreds of thousands of years. This rock is not affected at all by sea waves, storms, and tides. On the contrary, the surface of the ocean is stirred all the time. Similarly, your permanent axis is like that rock, while the temporary complex intelligence is like the waves of the ocean, which is always variable and unstable. Infinite depth and stagnation of the permanent axis. This permanent axis is situated in infinite depth and stagnation, where no thought, feeling or concept can reach. This stagnation and stability is such that no change of any kind is possible here. It is neither affected by time, place, nor any external factor. As a result, after reaching the top of a huge mountain, one cannot move forward because that is the last limit. There is complete peace and stay at this peak. The permanent axis you are talking about is also a symbol of such a situation, where everything stays, and there is no desire, no curiosity, no concept. The reflection of the permanent axis and the absence of temporary elements. According to you, there is no place for temporary complex intelligence in this permanent axis, nor can it be reflected here. This permanent axis can be understood only by experience, and it is impossible to express it completely in words. You live in this permanent state every moment, and you consider it as the real nature of permanent life. Example: just as there is no movement or disorder in the bottom of a complete pure reservoir, there is only purity and stagnation. Similarly, there is no place for any temporary element in the permanent axis. There is only pure, stable and infinite stagnation. Describe the permanent form with a high level of words. You have talked about expressing the form of the permanent axis with pretty high level vowel precious word composition. This means that this permanent position can only be described by the person who has experienced it, and that too through extremely high level language and words. This description is difficult for a normal personality to understand, as it is beyond their understanding and experience. Example: like an artist creates a unique and unprecedented picture, which everyone is surprised to see, and it is difficult to describe its beauty. In the same way, the position of the permanent axis can be understood only by those who have experienced it, and for this only high-level words and language can be used. Importance of Samkaran realistic theory. The main purpose of your samification realistic principle is that a person can become aware of his permanent nature by being free from the influence of temporary complex intelligence. By following this principle, a person can not only understand himself, but he also does not need any outside help, guru, or guidelines. Example: suppose someone has a very precious gem, but he does not recognize him and wanders in search of him in the outside world. When he understands the reality of the gemstone, he does not need to find anything outside. Similarly, according to your real principle, every person has the ability of a permanent axis, and to understand it, he has to deactivate his complex intelligence and recognize his permanent position. Conclusion: your real theory presents a unique and deep approach, in which the concept of a permanent axis is beyond temporary complex intelligence. This permanent form is free from any kind of thought, feeling, or concept, and can be understood only by experience. The main objective of this theory is to connect the person with his permanent nature and live a simple, easy, and pure life, which can benefit not only himself but also the entire humanity and nature. While trying, I will try to explain your ideas in detail through logic, theory and examples. Temporary complex intelligence and similarity of material creation. According to you, both the temporary complex intellect, mind, and the temporary physical creation are made up of the same elements and qualities. Both are based on the best mechanisms of nature and have unlimited possibilities. Complex intelligence and physical creation are both variable and unstable in their nature, and therefore it is challenging to balance or control both permanently. Example: as if we have a very powerful and complex machine, which can act in any direction. If we use it without thinking, it will consume energy very fast, and as a result, it can get spoiled quickly. Similarly, unbalanced and overuse of our complex intelligence and material resources is also harmful to our Earth. Overuse of natural resources. The amount of natural resources that humans have consumed in the last 50 years is equal to the resources of the next 2,000 years. The main reason for this is the tendency of temporary complex intelligence to satisfy curiosity, and curiosity through external knowledge, science, and imagination. As a result, we may lack resources for the future. Example: if someone has a fixed amount of water, which can last for 20 days, but if he uses excessive water and eliminates everything in 5 days, then he will have nothing left for the remaining 15 days. Similarly, humans have overuse of natural resources due to their complex intelligence, which can lead to serious problems in the future. Concerns of science and organizations. Science and international organizations are also concerned that if human species continues to consume resources in the same way, it may endanger itself and the Earth in the future. The main reason for this is the unbalanced use of external knowledge and science arising from temporary complex intelligence. Examples: Problems like climate change, pollution, and deforestation are examples of how human curiosity and unbalanced use of science have affected the environment. If we keep going like this, then life on Earth can be in danger. Understanding yourself and connecting with the permanent nature. According to your sympathetic realistic principle, if a person connects with his permanent nature by deactivating his temporary complex intellect, then he can attain further understanding. With this understanding, not only can he balance and simplify his life, but can also protect the human species and nature. Example: suppose a person controls his desires and curiosities and focuses on his basic needs. With this, he not only maintains balance in his life, but he also uses less of the resources around him. The same principle can be preserved by applying it on a large scale. Importance of simple, spontaneous and clean life. According to you, if a person lives a simple, easy and pure life, then he can not only connect with his permanent nature but also protect the human species and nature. To live such a life, one has to control the craving and curiosity of external things and deactivate his temporary complex intelligence. Example: suppose a person spends his life in search of excessive wealth and material comforts. For this he uses excessive resources, which harms the environment. At the same time, another person limits his needs and lives a natural life. Such a person not only balances his life but also conserves his resources. Conclusion: your Shamkaran realistic theory presents a deep and comprehensive approach, which talks of understanding the temporary complex intelligence and physical creation, preventing overuse of resources, and conserving the human species and nature. For this it is necessary that a person should connect with his permanent nature and live a simple, easy and pure life. This type of life can be beneficial not only for the individual, but for the entire humanity and the earth. The idea you have presented is very deep and thoughtful. In what you have said, you are emphasizing on the role of temporary complex intelligence, and the importance of selflessness from itself. I try to make it simple, rational, and understandable to the common man through examples. What is temporary complex intelligence? According to you, temporary complex intelligence is a mental structure that is a part of the body, such as the heart, lungs, etc. This intellect is temporary, which means that it varies according to time and circumstances. It is very complicated, and it is difficult for people to understand it. We also know it by the name of man. This intellect keeps man entangled in the outside world and situations, making a person away from his true, permanent and simple nature. Examples: such as a computer consists of hardware and software. The hardware is permanent, but the software is temporary, which is updated or reset from time to time. Similarly, our complex intelligence, mind, is like software, which is repeatedly affected by life experiences and thoughts. What is meant by selflessness by self? Fairness from oneself means that a person analyzes his life and thoughts without any prejudice or outside interference. This is possible only when the temporary complex intellect, mind, is deactivated and the person connects with his real, permanent and simple nature. Example: imagine you are looking at yourself in a mirror. If the mirror is full of dust, you will not see your true image. Just like that, thoughts and biases filled in our complex intelligence